All right, I'm going to report out from closed session first. So before we start, the City Council just met on one closed session item, and there is nothing to report out. So good evening, and thank you for viewing the January 17th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting with both in-person attendance and teleconference access via Zoom. We'll start with the land acknowledgement. The City of Arcata acknowledges that the lands we are located on are the unceded ancestral lands of the Wiyot people. The land that Arcata rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Gudini, meaning over in the woods or among the redwoods. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The City of Arcata acknowledges the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement seeks to aid in the dismantling the legacy narratives of settler colonialism. If you would like to, please join me for the flag salute. Will the city clerk please call roll call?
Mayor Matthews.
Here.
Vice Mayor Stillman. Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar is absent, but we have a quorum.
All right. If you wish to make a comment during the meeting, either at the two open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are 3 ways to do so. If you are here in person, please line up behind the podium when the item you would like to speak on is accepting public comment. If you are logged into Zoom, click Raise Your Hand when it is time for public comment on the agenda item you wish to speak on. If you are on the phone, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. When it is your turn, you will be prompted to dial *6 on your phone. For each item, we will be taking in-person public comment first, and then move to online comments. We will not be going back and forth. So if you are wanting to comment, please line up at the podium or raise your electronic hand as soon as public comment is requested for that item. All right, so we have some ceremonial matters, and this proclamation recognizing January 2024 as National Mentoring Month will be read by Vice Mayor Stillman.
Okay, so recognizing January 2024 as National Mentoring Month. Whereas this year, Big Brothers and Sisters of North Coast celebrates 55 years of service to the youth in Humboldt County. Big Sisters and Big Brothers of the North Coast recognize that the future of Humboldt County rests on the success of its youth. And whereas a mentor is a caring, considerate, consistent presence who devotes time to help young persons develop personal strength and achieve their potential through a structured and trusting relationship. Quality mentoring encourages positive choices and promotes self-esteem, supports academic achievement, and introduces young people to new ideas. And whereas the research shows that young people matched with a caring adult through a quality mentoring program are 55% more likely to be enrolled in college, 81% more likely to report to participating regularly in extracurricular activities and sports, 78% more likely to volunteer, and twice as likely to say they held a leadership position more than those who did not have a mentor. And whereas youth development and experts agree that mentoring is crucial to the social and emotional and cognitive development of youth, helping them navigate a path to adulthood more successfully. And whereas our community has a number of community volunteers, teachers, and many others who support the mentoring movement and work selfishly to improve our children's odds for success. Currently, a quarter of Big Brothers and Big Sisters of North Coast participants are Arcata residents. That's impressive. And now therefore be proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes January 2024 as National Mentoring Month and thanks all of our heroes who participate in quality mentoring programs to equip our youth with the tools to lead healthy and productive lives. And the City Council also calls on residents to help close the gap between availability of mentors and the number of children facing challenging circumstances who would love to spend time with a big brother or big sister. It takes little to be big for the National Mentoring Month. And we have Executive Director of Big Brothers and Big Sisters, Florina Parks, to accept this.
All right, well, it's nice to have something great to celebrate, right? 55 years we've been in this county, and we've supported more than 4,000 youth in one-to-one mentoring relationships. That's a big achievement, but we still have much more to do. There are 24,000 school-aged children in our community, and each of them deserve a mentor. And so we have to bridge that gap. What gap are we talking about? That's that the children reported in 2014 that they are growing up. 1 in 3 have reported they're growing up without a mentor in their life. That's the gap. We have to stand up for that 1 in 3. And so I'm grateful that in Arcata, we are doing a lot of that work. Arcata Elementary has a site-based mentoring program. We have Cal Poly students that contribute in great ways in our community through mentoring. We are also mentoring in other fields. And we have CASA, Boys and Girls Club, so many different mentoring programs and schools that invest in mentoring here. But we still have 35 youth on the wait list regionally that can be mentored. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Some big things that are coming up. We have Big Futures that we're going to be launched. It's a career-based mentoring program because we want to make sure every child graduates with a plan for their future. So what that means to us is that youth from 16 to 25 will have additional supports to guide them. And we're expanding our mentoring movement through spontaneous mentoring. Spontaneous mentoring is where each of us can show up for the life of a young person by giving them visibility, letting them know, asking a question at the right moment or at the right time, and being there. Behind us, we have, I have a great number of others that are doing this work, and I could not do it without them. Our site-based mentoring programs here in Arcata, as well as throughout Humboldt County, are dwindling in mentors. And so we started a new program called Lunch Buddies this year, so that you don't have to do a year commitment. You can do a semester by semester commitment to our youth. And so I'm going to ask one of our Lunch Buddies to start us off, and she has her 3 minutes. Thank you so much for your proclamation.
So I was not expecting to speak today, so mind the nerves. But to be the first lunch buddy has already been an honor, and I just started. The whole enrolling process, which it should be for Big Brothers Big Sisters, is a very long process, so it took a while to even get into the school itself. But now that I'm on board, there are more mentors needed. As the first and only lunch buddy there, it's like all the kids, they all want a lunch buddy, you know what I'm saying? And it kind of takes time away from the actual child that is there for the lunch buddy. So more mentors would actually help, those children get more time as well, because now I feel like, it's always nice to have all the kids as a gathering, but as having a specific little, you try to make sure you cater to that specific little. So there is definitely more mentors needed in the lunch buddy system. And the lunch buddy system is beneficial to both the little and the bigs. I work like 3 jobs. I'm a full-time student, I'm an intern, and I work part-time at a law office. So being able to still help the community and have that time and just eat the lunch, eat the food, spend time, how was your morning, how was your day with my little, that 30 minutes to an hour, every other day to every day really makes that difference, and I'm already seeing that difference, and it's only been a week. So I definitely recommend, and we need more people and more faces. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My name is Vonnie Fierro. I'm a community member. I've lived in Humboldt County for 31 years. I've been involved with this agency for 20 of those. And I'm so fortunate to have that time. I'm here to talk to you about investment and result. So I want you to just take a moment and I want you to close your eyes, maybe not close your eyes, but that's okay. And think of of your younger years and that adult or older human being that spent time with you, that laughed with you, taught you things, and how you've gotten here to this exact moment on January 17th. That older human, that mentor, was able to guide you, to support you through the thick and thin, through the good choices and those bad choices, if you knew me in my teenage years. And unknowingly, and perhaps without that effort, they supported you without any judgment. They were just there. If you think of that older adult, that is what mentorship is. Big Brothers Big Sisters of the North Coast is an awesome agency. It has an active board that makes sound decisions and provides good jobs that build people up and give them marketable skills. It has Florence Parks, who has become our community partnership and strength champion. This organization has youth that are waiting for you, your esteemed council, and the community who is listening in to come on forward, to spend the time. They also have needs for funds to continue providing program services. Those community services absolutely require that human touch that's so needed in our technologically heavy world. This organization has what I call opportunities in their offices as a volunteer, on their board, or to become a big. These are better yourself opportunities that we all strive for. We all think about how you want to make social change, how you want to become involved. We all think those things. This is the easy part. The easy part is picking up the phone and calling, hopping on the website, sending an email, maybe getting off your phone and out of your computers and into our beautiful community, supporting the youth that really is our backbone, that is really our framework of our community. 31 years, I've watched this community build up, I've seen this community build down, and I've seen this community strengthened on so many levels by CASA, by Big Brothers Big Sisters of the North Coast, and by Boys and Girls Club. I dare you and I challenge you to do these things, to pick up the phone, to send the email. I started this chat talking about investment and result. I'm talking about you making an investment in you and your community, netting the result of enjoyment, contribution, laughter, and love. Why? Why would you step away from that? Why would you not look at that as something that you would be able to do? I'll leave you with these thoughts. Harriet Tubman stated that every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember that you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world. And from my own Scottish heritage, William Barclay stated, there are 2 great days in every one of our lives, 2 great days. The first one is that you're born, and that second day, that second greatest day, is when you discover why. So when I was doing a little bit of research for this speech and reflecting back on 31 years and 20 years and my own 49 years, and the fact that I have a 9-year-old in this community who is just thriving because of agencies, because of community support, because people are involved, because we're all making eye contact, and we're here now, because we've chosen to. I found a Latin proverb, and that Latin proverb was that if there is no wind, row. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Oh.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name's Heather Markson. I'm the program specialist at Big Brothers Big Sisters. I have been the program specialist since February of last year. Before then, I had volunteered and was an advocate for Big Brothers Big Sisters for 8 years prior. When I was a teenager, I was actually homeless, and I actually had a mentor who helped me and absolutely changed the trajectory of my life through his actions and through his selflessness and his kindness. And like she was saying, no judgment, and I could talk to him about anything, and he was just really a confidant and somebody who really allowed me to grow into the person that I am today. And when I became an adult, I wanted to give back to my community because I felt like I needed to, because I had been helped so much myself. And so I found Big Brothers Big Sisters, and their mission and values resonated so deeply with me. And I just love making the connections. I've made the connections with our Lunch Buddies program with Kai and her little. I've also made the connection at the site-based program in Arcata with Ivory and her little May. And watching them, just their relationship grow has been the most rewarding thing in this position, I would say, so far. I just love talking about my mentor because he's no longer here anymore, and he actually didn't have any children, and he wasn't married. And so I feel like I get to let him live longer and just like get to talk about him. And I feel like that's how many of us think about people who are no longer here. We get to still speak kindly of them and make them still be here. Anyways, I came here to tell you that there are multiple ways that you can get involved in our organization. You can join one of our fundraising events. You can donate in-kind gifts, space for events, office equipment, advertising, gift certificates, sharing our posts for our special events on your Facebook and Instagram, sponsoring a mentoring event, having us speak to your employees about becoming a mentor or if they also need a mentor. And then our next big event is actually Both for Kids' Sake. It's on March 1st and 2nd, and it's really just a celebration of what we can do for our community. So you can gather a team and you raise funds, and then you come and let's just celebrate together and just have fun. And I just want you throughout this month to think of anyone who has mentored you, or if you have children, who are mentoring your children and what kind of impact are they having on them. And so yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Okay. Next we have, okay, really quick because we have to move on. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ivory Browning. I am part of the site-based program, and I just wanted to tell you one little experience with my little May. May is a very, very excitable child who really wants to make friends with their peers, but has a little trouble navigating those. They can be a little aggressive or abrasive sometimes, and every time I like to ask them, what were you trying to share? What were you trying to say? And let's find a different way that we can express that to our peers. And I've been watching them make more and more friends at their school in Arcata, and it's just been such a beautiful and wonderful experience. And I think everyone would really benefit from being a mentor. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. And next we have a report by commission, and we have an annual report by our planning commission presented by Scott Davies.
Good evening, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to update you all briefly on some of the work that the Planning Commission has done over the course of the last year. I know that you've all read our report, so I'm going to provide a brief summary and reserve a little time if you have any questions. One of our main goals was to update the general plan, something we discussed in some fashion at every meeting, special meeting, and joint study session that we had in 2023. We completed the majority of this task and expect to finalize this work and make a formal recommendation this spring. Other goals were to work on the local coastal program, climate action plan, targeted redevelopment, and historic preservation, but in many instances, due to the sheer amount of work we spent on the gateway and general plan updates, we were not able to focus on these items. However, we do expect to find the time and bandwidth for this work later this year once we're finished with our general plan updates. We also focused on streamlined permitting and look forward to that being finalized with the rest of the general plan. Another priority for the Planning Commission was and continues to be community engagement. The Planning Commission has been responsive to community feedback and input, which is manifested in a variety of ways, from study sessions to adjusting how we've recorded our minutes, input on our decision-making process from the community, and returning to our regular meeting format from our special meetings to provide, once again, additional time for community input. The Commission remains committed to community engagement. I'd also really like to discuss training. While there were training opportunities for planning commissioners in 2022, there were no trainings offered in 2023. And a goal for 2024 for all of the Planning Commission is more training opportunities. The Commission would like more formal training to better understand roles and responsibilities, as well as technical capacity for the decisions that we're working on. The Commission, as you know, has several new members, and the composition of the Commission has changed over the last 2 years, with the majority of the commissioners being appointed since the beginning of the long-range planning work that we're doing. Now, perhaps more than any time in the last decade, the Commission would benefit from training, and training and subscription services, electronic or otherwise, will need to be budgeted to accomplish this goal, so please do that. The Planning Commission would like the Council to consider a regional collaboration for high-impact training for planning commissioners as well. And lastly, I just want to say how proud and grateful I am for the effort and commitment from each of our planning commissioners. And my job as chair is made so much more rewarding because of the quality of commissioners I have the pleasure of volunteering with. That's it for me.
Thank you so much. I know that we watch most of the Planning Commission meetings and have sat with you in very many study sessions and really appreciate all the hard work that you do on a volunteer basis. So thank you so much for all the effort you've put in the last several years. Do any of my council people, let's start with Kimberly.
I just wanted to support that endeavor. With our goals planning coming up, I would like to make sure we prioritize training for you. I had an opportunity to be a recipient of that, and it was super beneficial for me. So thank you, and thank you for a great report.
So I just wanted to ask, having watched I think it was the last or the year before Planning Commission meetings, when you were talking about the benefits and goals and also the inclusionary zoning and how you decided to put a gap between it. Do you want to, we're going to be talking about inclusionary zoning tonight, and I was wondering if you could just sort of talk to us for a moment about why you put a gap there, the reasons.
Yeah. Inclusionary zoning is something we talked about a lot throughout our review process, and I think basically there's three components that kind of work together and overlap in regards to our goals to create more affordable housing, and inclusionary zoning is one of those that works in conjunction with the state density bonus and state housing laws, as well as our community benefits program. And we left a gap between the community benefits program and inclusionary zoning as an encouragement for future developers to choose the community benefits program instead of the density bonus. But I think it's important to realize that whether we get the state density bonus or inclusionary zoning or affordable housing through the community benefits program, either way we're achieving the goal of getting affordable housing. So overall, I think it's an equation with too many unknown variables for us to be able to say at the outset exactly what's going to work, which is why after careful kind of consideration, we decided that this was the best place to start, but it's something that we plan to keep an eye on, because I think we're not going to really know what the effect of this program that we're putting together is going to be until we start seeing some actual construction and development. At that point, we can look at it and see whether the community benefits program is having the kind of success we hope for, whether developers are angling more towards state density bonus. And at that point, if we feel like we need to kind of turn the dial a little bit on some of these programs and the way they interact with each other, then we'd have the information then that we don't have now to make a better decision.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but again, thank you guys so much for all the work that you do. I concur with wanting to see you guys be able to take advantage of some trainings and work towards that, especially with, a number of new commissioners, joining you within the last year or so. And just looking forward to, these other planning works that have kind of been on hold, like the local coastal plan, the climate action plan, because of, our big focus on Gateway and general plan right now. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for, leading the helm and being a great chair as well. So thank you, Scott.
Yeah, we appreciate being up to full strength on the Planning Commission, and you touched on some of that, but the training is I just really want to double down on the fact that we have a lot of new commissioners, but also on the other side of that, we have some really highly impactful decisions to make. And so just another plug for training. So appreciate everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I will remind everybody that there are open spots on the Planning Commission, so if that's something that you're interested in, you can go ahead and fill out an application. So thank you so much.
So the last planning information where planning commissioners were present, there were other people that came from other counties for that training when it was held at the D Street Community Center.
Yeah, the area for local government, I think it was, did training, and it was, I use some of the things I learned in that training session at every single planning commission that I've taken part of and that I've chaired. It was really, really useful way to give you a better lens to see the kind of issues that we grapple with and the best ways to find a path towards good decisions for planning. So really important.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to move on to early communication. The City Council values your comments. This is a 15-minute time period that allows people to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda. Please know that, pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take actions on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. At the end of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Supported requests that require council actions will be set for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers may be limited to 2 minutes. There will also be time for public to comment specifically on each agenda item and again at the end of the meeting. So there is another opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. And we're going to take the first 4 speakers now, go to Zoom, and then if there is time permitting, we will come back.
Oh, dear council members. Maureen here. We are an advanced society. We need to stop killing each other, especially because warmongers tell us to do so while they live in their mansions and devour our earnings. San Francisco City Council passed a resolution last week for a ceasefire, an end to the Gaza conflict, and one was passed in the small college town of Kotati. Let our town be known for taking on this globally important issue. I wish us well going into the new year.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. It's good to see you again. Scott McBain, hydrologist, river nerd. As you've probably seen, we had a little bit of rain this weekend. So we did a little bit of storm chasing and on Jolly Giant Creek, just because these things don't happen very often. So, pictures shows 1,000 words. So just wanted to show you some pictures. We shared this, we talked about this last night at the Wetlands and Creeks Committee. So just trying to bring some information out just because these don't happen very often. So there's quite a few flooded homes and businesses downtown, and we kind of did the highlights in some of the photos. But Dead Reckoning and the Breast Health Project on 8th and I were some of the worst ones. Bob's Lumber out on 14th, but that's a recurring thing as well. And then 7th and I was another bad one. And then the corner of 5th and H down on the lower part of Jacoby, or Jolly Giant Creek was pretty bad too. So, what's the cause of this? Obviously the rain has a lot to do with it, plus the high tides. And on page 17, it kind of puts a little bit of that together. Actually, the page numbers are numbered, but shows the tidal cycle. But the high tide was about 1:15 in the afternoon, and the peak of the flood came through about 4 o'clock at the corner of 8th and J. It was like 2 inches higher a little bit later in the afternoon. So how big was the flood? When we looked at other gauging stations, it's about a 10-year flood from Little River, 15-year flood, so it's not like a 100-year flood. This is a pretty common thing. And with the tides come all the way to the Breast Health Project, so that's going to continue getting worse with time. In closing, Wetlands and Creeks are working on this. Morgan's doing an awesome job. We'll keep up trying to get more information.
Thank you so much, Scott, and feel free to reach out to us.
Hi, thanks so much for allowing me to speak. And I just want to say that I'm very happy to be here with you guys today and speak about the ceasefire resolution for Palestine. I know that there are some people on the council that think that it's better just not to address it again at all. Certainly, I understand that. I would prefer being at home, with my feet up and relaxing. But we have a genocide occurring in full view, and it's not slowing down. It's speeding up. It's getting worse. It's expanding. The conflict is becoming a regional conflict. It's genocide, and it's like decades of occupation of a people that the United Nations has recognized is unlawful occupation, that the Israeli government has been told by the United Nations over and over again to allow the return of the Palestinians that were forced off their land, but they've refused to do so. But this is getting to be completely out of hand, and we're not going to stop coming here and talking to you guys about this until we actually do something about it. And this resolution is a really positive thing. It's the possibility of bringing people together, bringing the community together, different groups from different backgrounds coming together and advocating for peace, for a ceasefire. This is a positive thing. This is a good thing. And I hope that you all can get behind this so that we can be a stronger community in facing the challenges that are ahead as we face slide towards fascism in this country. Where are we going to be in November when there's the next presidential election? We need to stand united as a community.
Thank you. I will take one more in person and then go to Zoom.
Hi, Paul Patino, and I won't waste a lot of your time. I'll generally just say ceasefire, you can figure out the rest. And I'm going to add a Pilates term that I'm co-opting from them. No judgment, ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any online commenters?
We do. Our first one is Shannon. Go ahead, Shannon.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call. I'm really thankful that you allowed people to call in. It's pretty unique and really much appreciated. I'm a mother of 2 children. One of my daughters is medically complex, so I'm down here at UCSF right now. So I just wanted to, comrades have said today, and my community members, about bringing the Redwood Peace and Justice Center ceasefire resolution to a vote. I just wanted to give you some things to think about. The World Health Organization has estimated that a child is killed in Gaza every 10 minutes. A new study that was just released into the amazing paper, The Intercept, references a UK and US sponsored climate study that the first 2 months of the war, Israel's siege on Gaza, created more carbon than the annual footprint of 20 of the world's most climate vulnerable nations. So just think about that. I know Arcata's really into that. And then also, just this war isn't going to solve anyone's problems. It's going into the fourth month now, and it's no end in sight. And it's making all of us across the world less safe. Americans, Israelis, Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, Jews, we're all less safe. It's not solving anyone's problems. We all know that violence does not solve anyone's problems. Two wrongs do not make a right. And I just want to echo, someone said something at the last meeting about, hope you talk about local issues. I want to say that this is a local issue. What's happening right now in the Middle East is on the hearts and minds of all of us right now. And it also affects our economy. If we end up going into war.
Thank you so much, Shannon.
All right, our next speaker is Fred. Go ahead, Fred. Go ahead.
The end of the evening.
There.
We started our agreement with the Turner Center 1 year ago, January 18th. The proposal was that the information with the Turner Center would help with the decisions and policies developed in the Gateway Plan. It's been a year. We've gotten nothing that would add to help us. A year and a month ago, 13 months ago, December 2022, the council authorized $118,000 to Plan West to further their development of the Gateway Plan. I wrote to the council on this back in August. Essentially, we've seen nothing of this $118,000. The contract amendment was very about what would take place. Specifically, we would be very, very useful in evaluating the actual impact, 4, 5, 6, and 7-story buildings. There is a promised plan area massing diagram. There is an example of what this would look like in the contract. This is also on arcata1.com. That has never been supplied. Other promised 3D visualizations were dropped. In fact, the section of the Gateway Plan, which was to have these visualizations, was simply removed. There were to be 3 meetings with the public on specified Gateway topics with public input and surveys. That did not occur. There were to be 3 4-hour Saturday meetings to summarize the public input and coordinate public input with an open discussion. Those did not occur. There were to be 3 facilitated meetings to review the form-based code. That did not occur. There is to be enhanced code graphics. We haven't seen it yet. There is the testing of opportunity sites in the Gateway Plan. This report was a total joke. The authors apparently did not read the Gateway Plan document because the report was in contrast to what we're trying to do here. That report either needs to be redone or have a refund. It had no value. The creation of the Gateway Plan is getting to the end. The Planning Commission and the public did not benefit from the $118,000. It appears the money has simply disappeared.
Thank you so much, Fred, for your comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Tamar. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello.
Tamar. Yep, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you again for not putting the resolution on the agenda originally. I see that it keeps coming up, and I feel that we've already addressed this revolution, and it was decided that it was not appropriate for our city and even our county, and it's been addressed in many cities all over California and potentially all over the United States. I feel like it's a circus that's going from one town to the next, and it feels to me like an illegitimate movement. Free Palestine is just a movement that is repeating over and over the same narrative, and it's not a thoughtful movement. It's somehow become a progressive movement. I always considered myself a progressive person, but up until now, it just doesn't feel appropriate to me anymore. And it's been attached to so many people's anger that they're expressing, I believe, in a way that is illegitimate. So again, I thank you again for not putting this resolution on the agenda. I feel it's dangerous for our local community, and it's really doing nothing to help the situation in the Middle East. Thank you again.
Thank you. We'll take one more on Zoom.
We don't have any more on Zoom, but you're right at 15 minutes.
We are at 15 minutes. There will be another opportunity to talk at the end of the meeting. Thank you so much for coming to make comment. All right. And that will bring us to our consent calendar. So all matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. A is approve the City Council minutes of January 3rd, 2024. B, biweekly report on disbursements. C, adopt ordinance number 1566, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata amending the Arcata Municipal Code Title II, Chapter 10 to make biennial consumer price index adjustments to campaign contribution limitations, waive reading of text and consent to read by title only. D, authorize investment in the California Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System class. E, authorize investment in California Asset Management Program, CAMP. F, approve the purchase of one Ford F-350 with Summit track body, $134,526.32, including tax and freight, and award purchase contract to Harper Motors, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. And G, adopt resolution number 234-27, approving an application for funding and execution of a standard agreement and any amendments thereto from the 2023 Cal Home Ownership Program Super NOFA. Would any members of the council like to pull anything from the consent calendar? Would any members of the public like to pull anything from the council? Joanne, what would you like to pull?
Item F involves car purchases.
Okay, so we have a...
Okay. I will make a motion to approve consent calendars items A through E and G.
I'll second. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Schaefer and a second by Councilmember White. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Joanne, go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Joanne McGarry, and I come to these meetings all the time, and I'm always sort of flabbergasted by the consent calendar items that involve a huge expenditure of money on things like vehicles. And it just sort of makes me realize when we're talking about climate change and all that, and it's hard to find the information, but I think at some point it would be really important for us to get a report about our vehicles and usage in our community, and why we're buying new ones and what's happening to the old ones, and are these new ones going to be used for a long, long time and then die and we get hopefully some alternatives. It's just a lot of money for cars and trucks and things like that. So it would be nice to have kind of a little report about that at some point, I think.
Thank you for your comment.
I'll make a motion to approve item F.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Schaefer and a second by Vice Mayor Stillman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and that is the consent calendar. And now we are on to old business, which is to consider inclusionary zoning policy. Can we get a staff report, please?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and council members. I do have a fairly brief staff report. I know we've studied this matter at least 5 different meetings between the Planning Commission, the City Council, and their joint study sessions. And so I will hit the highlights. At the last joint study session, City Council asked the Planning Commission to consider including a moderate income component to inclusionary zoning. And so we've looked at that. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation on that. And in addition, the Planning Commission has revised its recommendation that it held earlier. And so I'll convey that to you. Before we get started, I did want to point out that Table 6 in your staff report is inaccurate. Don't rely on Table 6. When I was reading about the density bonus, which became effective January 1 of this year, on actually the day that we were putting the staff reports out. I'd misread some information that came from Holland Knight. Now that I've read more deeply into the information, I realized where I made that mistake, and so I wanted to update you here. In the staff report, I said that the density bonus limits were raised. The density bonus limits were not raised. So currently, with the new Senate bill, there's the same base for 5% of very low, 10% of low and moderate income. So if you produce a project that has at least 5% very low or 10% of low or moderate income, then you start to garner a density bonus in your project. What the new law says is that when you max out that density bonus for very low income, once you've committed 15% of the original base density to very low income, you've hit the 50% threshold. You get a 50% density bonus, and it doesn't go up from there until you get to 100%. What the new law does instead is says, look, if you max out one of those density bonus ranges, 15% for very low, 24% for low, or 44% for moderate, we will give you an additional density bonus on top of the density bonus that you would otherwise have been maxed out at by adding a new category. So theoretically, you could get up to 200% density bonus using this new law. So that was one change that happened because of this new law. In addition, the law added additional concessions. One additional concession if you hit 16% for very low income, or if you do 100% for any lower income category, you would get 2 additional concessions. And just to refresh your memory, the concessions are essentially the developer says, this is too expensive for me to do the project and this feature, maybe it's a design feature that you want me to do, and so I'm not doing the design feature. And that's at the discretion of the developer to identify which of those they're going to choose for concessions. There's been case law around this that's really identified that the developers are in charge, and that their burden of proof is fairly low. And so this new law also clarified that case law, embedding it in the law itself. And so those are the primary changes that have happened with density bonus as a result. And so it did not have the effect that I had stated in the staff report. So with that strikeout, I'd like to go forward and refocus your attention to the inclusionary zoning proposal that the Planning Commission made. And this is their recommendation here in Table 5. It includes very low income starting at 3% for our inclusionary zoning program. For low income, it would be 6%. And then for the median income program, it would be 10%. So those would be the thresholds that we'd require if you're doing a project that has at least 30 units of housing. You would then have to pick either 3% or 6% of very low or low income respectively, and you would have to provide 10% median income. So every single project is going to have at least 13% affordable housing and up to 16% affordable housing if they're subject to our inclusionary zoning requirement. I want to pause on that real quick and make sure that that's clear. So 13 to 16% is the current inclusionary zoning requirement under the Planning Commission's proposal.
What number of units does that kick in at for a project that's being built?
That is a great question. So the inclusionary zoning requirements for 3 and 6%, if you had a 30-unit project, that would mean for a very low income, at least one of the units is very low income, and for low income, it would be at least 2 units. And then I just gave another bracket on the outside here. If it was a really large project, 150 units, you'd see 5% and 9%. Now that would be in addition to, for a 30-unit project, 3 would be moderate income, and for a 150-unit project, 15 would be moderate income on top of either the 5 or 9, or the 1 or 2, depending on the size of the project. Does that make sense?
Well, just that the proposal before you in your documents is that this would kick in at 30 units. That is the floor. That's not just an example.
Correct. And I can talk a little bit more about why the Planning Commission recommended 30 if you're interested in that as well. I wanted to just give you the contrast with density bonus here. Density bonus starts triggering for very low income at 5%, and for low income it triggers at 10%. And so you could see this is the gap that we were talking about. For very low income, the inclusionary zoning would require 1, the density bonus would require 2. It doesn't sound like a lot in unit count difference, but it's a fairly substantial amount when it comes to the life cycle difference in rent associated with those. I know that there's been some discussion about increasing the density or increasing the trigger for inclusionary zoning. And so if you were to include, say, 15% as the very low income threshold, you'd be talking for a 30-unit project, 5 units, and then 3 of the units would be for moderate income in this case, if you keep with the 10% moderate income. And if it was a low density project and you went 20%, mirroring the same kinds of structure that we had before, where very low income requires fewer units to meet the obligation, low density at 20% would be 6 of those units at a 30-unit project. I think we've been talking a lot about the different features and facets. The Planning Commission's recommendation has changed a few times. We've talked about other jurisdictions that are doing 20%. There's a lot of different avenues that we've discussed. And I want to pick up on something that the Planning Commission chair spoke to when he was asked about the Planning Commission's recommendation on inclusionary zoning. There are just a ton of variables. I've listed out the few on the screen here that came to my head in about 30 seconds that affect how a project pencils. And none of these variables are under our control. And all of these variables are going to change with time. And so the reason why I bring this up is because I do think it's important to settle on a number. Staff has a recommendation, but I certainly don't have a crystal ball. And as the Planning Commission chair said, if you want to come back and change the number, if we find out that it's not working in the future, you can do that. So this is a situation where I would offer that, trying to, have the best solution may be at odds with getting a solution that will get us moving forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the inclusionary zoning requirements. I'll put these tables up here again if you want to refer to them. And I'd recommend you open it to public comment and give us direction.
Will you elaborate on the point you alluded to earlier, just about that 30 number? Because, 1 unit for a project, because I'm just trying to think, like, how many 30-unit projects do we really see, coming across the planning table? And are we ever even really going to see this triggered with a number that high? And just, what you were going to speak to that.
Yeah, that's a great question. If you look historically, we have not seen many. But then you have to balance that with the idea that we have about 5%, somewhere between 5 and 10%, I don't remember the exact number, of our entire land base, the entire 11 square miles of the city of Arcata, is zoned for high-density housing. And so certainly if you have a very small proportion of your area zoned for higher density housing, you're not going to see a lot of large projects. We have seen in the last couple of years a 100-unit project, 142-unit project, 60-unit project. There are several projects that are coming in. There's a 40-unit project, I think, that was just approved. So I do think we're seeing a lot of these, in particular on the rental side. And looking forward to the incentivization that we're doing through the zoning in the infill opportunity zones in particular, and in areas that will have commercial mixed use where density will be less of a factor. I think you're going to start to see more bigger projects. The number 30 was a bit arbitrary. Our inclusionary zoning in 2014, prior to 2014 when it was revoked, triggered at 5 units. And that's typical. A lot of the times what happens is that, there's something new that comes out in planning law, and then it spreads throughout the state. Everybody's kind of adopting the same thing just because it's a template and we don't really have a basis for it. Certainly, the economics of Arcata are very different than the economics of San Francisco, and what's going to pencil in those two jurisdictions are going to be vastly different. So The 30 units was, somewhat arbitrary, but the Planning Commission finally settled on that after some discussion, reasoning that, it's on the probably lower end of the larger projects we'll start to see in the future. And it also is a large enough project so that the individual impact of the loss of market rent for those few units will have a smaller impact on the overall financials for the project. And so it won't be a barrier to projects to begin with. What we found with setting the threshold at 5 units, as we did prior to 2014, the threshold was just so low that projects weren't coming in, they weren't penciling. And I can tell you that when we did have inclusionary zoning, for the vast majority, I think there was one project I can think of in the entire time I've worked here that was built completely private market and had inclusionary zoning requirements, and that inclusionary zoning requirement ended up being 1 unit. For the most part, it required city subsidy. We were partnering with the developer to build those inclusionary zoning units, which is why the council in 2014 decided to revoke inclusionary zoning. I think it's an important tool, and I think that, somewhere around the 30 unit threshold approximates the right number.
Yeah, okay, thank you. A couple things. I am still really wanting to see 10 and 15% as opposed to the lower amounts. I'd also like to see a trigger. I know we just talked about it, but again, I think that 30 is, I think we need to go lower. A lot of these larger projects, like Plaza Point, Sorrel Place, are subsidized. So they're not subject necessarily to that market rate. And so developers are not having to worry about that. I would like to, other cities have done it, and I know that you talked about that 5% just seemed, I don't know what that number would be, but I think 30 is not where I would like to land. I would like to have a smaller number so that we could trigger that. I think the larger projects often, because they are subsidized, can take care of themselves. And I'll probably have some more things to say, but just give me a minute here.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a question in there for me, but I will say that the projects that I was thinking about that were larger were all market rate projects. I wasn't adding in any subsidized projects at all in that list.
Okay, and the other project that was brought up by a constituent was the student housing, low-income student housing, senior housing, where the rents are charged by the bed, not by the apartment, where they have a single clustered kitchen or clustering housing. What are the triggers for density bonus amounts for these sources? Since it would be likely easier to build than true affordable housing, this is just a quote from them. If a developer wanted to get a density bonus and waivers and concessions, wouldn't the developer be more inclined to go to that route? And they point out that this is different from the all affordable building like Sorrel Place.
I hesitate to speculate.
Alex, do you have anything? Do you want to ask me? Okay. I just feel the problem that I'm seeing with what we're labeling as very low and low income is people like us, right? I mean, these numbers are what and these are the people that we want to house. And so, I mean, I would rather, house people like us. And since this is, a living document that we can go back and course correct, I would rather err on the side of trying to house, low income, which is me, or my people that work in Arcata, and then when things start getting built, go back and ask the developers, get feedback from them on how it was from them. That's just my opinion, just because I don't think that that these incomes are anywhere near realistic.
I'm sorry, can you point me to the table that you're referring to?
Oh, I was on table 2.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a question I had too. I mean, and I get, we're looking at area median income, but like, man, where are the people that make $28.20 an hour, and can't, it's just like that is high. That's like significantly higher than what anybody who works in the service industry is making, or, anybody that, I mean, again, Meredith and employees of our local nonprofits and Chamber of Commerce and teachers, and like these. When I saw these numbers, I was like, oh dang, I'm way down there. And so that's kind of like I'm grappling with that, because if we're going off of these numbers, it doesn't really like connect for me, because it doesn't seem realistic. And so just to kind of add, because we're all kind of giving our preliminary opinions on this, that, looking at this table, especially here, that either those percentages need to go up or that unit threshold needs to go down. I don't necessarily think maybe both of those things need to change, but either it needs to kick in sooner for some of these, projects that are getting built and that are, on the scale and that are in the pipeline, or we need to increase the percentage so that when these projects get built, we're seeing a greater proportion of units.
Yeah, especially with utilities climbing as they are. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, so let me explain table 2 a little bit, because this is the median income, household income for, households that would qualify under the unit sizes indicated in the table. Median income is, this is basically up to 120% area median income is the upper limit. And so if, typically when we think of an affordable housing program, the low income housing on this table, for example, is 80% of area median income. So, and then the very low income are people earning, 50% area median income. So this table isn't intended to show the full range of the very low and low income. This table 2 only pertains to the median income, and it's the cap, it's the upper limit of median income. And what we were trying to do with this table is really to show how developing a median income program, and in fact, I've got a
Do we have anything showing what the floor would be also? I know we have, like, you said this is the cap, so this is, I'm assuming 120%? Table 2?
I'm sorry, I did not catch what you asked. Do we have anything showing the floor?
Right, 80%, because you just said, if I understood correctly, that this particular table is at 120% or the higher range?
Yeah, so I don't have those tables in front of me, but I can certainly bring them.
Could you just maybe give us a number of what, 80% of the median income for a family is what, 52,000 for one person, if I'm not, no, 2 people?
If you were to take a look at this table, you could roughly say, for example, for the household size of 2, the 1 bedroom, median monthly is $5,587. That's 40% higher than 80%. So approximately half of that number. So, close to $3,000.
3,587-ish. Right.
Yeah. And I can certainly, I can probably even call those tables up while we're in the meeting if you really want to look at them tonight, but I can bring them back if you're interested. The reason why I put this table forward, though, is because I wanted to try and explain some of the background around how difficult it is to try and structure a median income program with those median income rents, or with the median income, if you're at the upper limit of it anyway. And if you walk that backwards to the, the 30% less the utility allowance, for a 2-bedroom, if you're looking at table 2 under the, household size of 2, 1 bedroom, you're talking $1,556 is what they could afford for rent. That's if you structured it, entirely the way that, we think about affordable housing. For a 2-bedroom, they'd be able to make, $1,765 in rent. And so that's approximating what the market is. That's approximately what market rents are. And so if we're going to tell someone, look, you have to limit your rents and you have to limit them to this amount, and that amount has to, happens to be at or above market, they're not going to be too upset about that to start. But it's also not a very effective program. And so what the Planning Commission did was a little bit of math to try and work through what would a program look like. Essentially what I did was I reverse engineered a program to see what would the factors have to be in order to stabilize rents at around or just below market rate. And what this would do in effect would be to prevent runaway rent hikes because they would be regulated by the city of Arcata. Let me show you this. Oh, I don't have another slide. Let me try and explain it with this one. Okay, so here's table 4 out of the Planning Commission's staff report. For that same two-person household, 1 bedroom, working it backwards where you're doing a deeper targeting than at the, what their maximum rent would be, and trying to dig deeper into, that income category, you could end up at about, $1,200 a month for a 1 bedroom as market rent. And this was
That's 2 bed, or no, I'm sorry, 1 bedroom. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 2
Thanks.
people, 1 bedroom. This is about $1,200 a month is what we found in market rent. And this wasn't an extensive or exhaustive rent study at all. This was just picking what was available at the time when I put this together. And using our 30% of 75% of area median income, we came up with 1137. So this basically, all this does really is it subtracts off the utility allowance and banks that into rent so that someone would come in, if they were subject to this median income program, they'd be paying slightly less than you would be paying on the open market for the same unit. For the low income program, that same person would be paying $773. This is someone who earns 50% or less area median income. And for the, I'm sorry, that was very low income. For a low income person, they'd be paying $907 for that same unit. So this kind of gives you a sense of the spread of rents for household size of 2, 1 or 2 that would be renting a 1 bedroom under that inclusionary zoning program.
And I'm sorry, my math brain is broken. You said 50%, but we have numbers for like 30%. Could you give me that number just so that I can see? I'm trying to figure out, is it 30% of their income and what that would look like and what they're actually paying?
No, well, there's 2 ways of going about developing rents. Typically, we think of something as affordable. The household housing cost is affordable if you're paying, around 30% of your income, your gross income, and we consider that affordable to the household. But when you build up a program, you don't base it on any individual's income. You base it on these countywide averages, and so instead you pick a target of how deep you want to go. So 75% of area median income is targeting even deeper into the income category than 80%, which is where low income starts. And then you take 30% of that. So 30% would be the proportion of the calculation that says 30% of that is affordable to people earning that amount. I could probably do the math to answer your question, but they're kind of going at the question in 2 different ways. Does that make sense?
Yes, no.
Kim, you want to take it out for public comment so you can?
Sure.
So let's open it up for public comment. Come on down.
I'm in a situation where I'm paying over a third in my fixed income for rent of a 3-bedroom unit, and I'm limited now on the amount of time I have there. And I am very fearful of what will be available and affordable and safe and sane, all those things, here in the future. And what's also interesting just right now is I'm having a hard time finding a third housemate. with this supposed like great need for people to find housing. So I think there's a lot of weird things happening that maybe aren't being reflected quite in the columns and numbers here. But we want a community that can live safely, sanely, affordably, in places that can, make us thrive and contribute, wholesomely to the community. So we want to include as many people as possible, and there's a lot of poor and not so rich people in this community. So we really, 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 really need to do what we can to accommodate them. Because I don't understand the numbers too well, or percentages, so there you go.
Thank you.
Good evening. The state and the community here is trying hard to get some housing going. So, but one of the things in the last 2 years that no one's done is just bring the developers in here and start asking some questions, because all of this is to stimulate them to do something. And I go back again to last December when Danco gave a talk at Ollie and went through the economics of why things haven't been built so much in Arcata. They, of course, have built some two large, Sorrel Place and Plaza Point that were heavily subsidized, and they went through how that was subsidized, and it was pretty interesting. I had no idea how they were getting the money to do those projects. But as far as market rate, at that time, they had a pretty dismal outview of why housing wasn't being built in Humboldt, and especially in Arcata too. And part of it has to do with, we're not a very wealthy community as far as salaries that people are earning. I mean, there's not that many good jobs. I mean, the good jobs are over at the university, the jobs higher ups here at the city. Those are the folks that can afford these rents. So what's also lacking in this whole thing is, where are the jobs being developed? It seems to be we're trying to build housing, but what I hear from a lot of these young kids is that, it isn't just the housing. I have to have enough money to afford that. And I don't see any plan whatsoever of trying to attract some companies to come to Humboldt and give them a salary so that if any of this gets built, that they're going to have a chance to live there. So I can't understand. I brought this up so many times. I can't understand why you don't have Danco here or Pacific Builders and ask them, with all of this, would you start building? I mean, the state just on January 1st has changed a lot of the laws to stimulate, and my hunch is that things are very different here than Humboldt than in the Bay Area. I mean, I think those strategies are probably going to work down there, but here, I'm not so sure. So, but I'm not an expert, but I sure would like to hear somebody in the building trade come in here and, look at these numbers and give you a realistic assessment of what's going to happen in the future, so that we're just not a bunch of dreamers and telling people that this is all going to happen when really it's not. So I'm waiting for that day to happen, but in 2 years I have not seen that. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Anybody else in person to make comment? Nope, let's go online.
All right, looks like we just have one commenter. Go ahead, Fred.
Yes, good evening. This is Fred Wise. The council has received my letters, so they're very clear. In the letter this morning, I expressed 8 questions. You've been asking some of them. Perhaps you could have the community development director respond to those questions in writing. In the staff report, these are quotes from the director. Quote, "The income of moderate income households is sufficient to pay market rents without burden." Another quote, "The conclusion of that assessment was a moderate income program is not needed." As the mayor spoke, and I think we all know, this does not seem to be the case in reality. We can look at the numbers till we're blue in the face, but we know what the reality is. In terms of the 80% figure, that would result in a 2-person household in a 1 bedroom apartment needing to pay about $1,000 for rent, and a 3-person household in a 2-bedroom apartment needing to pay about $1,135 for rent. I think both of those are not market rents. I again put in my request for outside help. I feel that there are consultants who are available, who have done this for communities, small cities in California, who would be able to help us. As a point that the mayor is making about the wages there, the figures shown are if a person worked 52 weeks, 5 days a week, with no holidays, no personal days, no sick days, you can actually add a requirement for about 10% higher to get that same annual income based upon reality. Again, I want to echo what Greg Daggett said, that in 2022, the commission asked to have developers come in to discuss these matters. That was never done. And finally, I'll say what we need to look at what the goals are here. I think the council knows this.
Do we lose you, Fred?
Did we lose you?
Oh, Fred, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
No, Fred, when you said, I
Yes.
think the council knows this, and then we lost the last part of your sentence.
Okay, the council knows that the goal is to create housing that people can afford to live in. And without that, we've really failed. Thanks very much, and keep working.
Thank you so much, Fred. All right, so I feel like we've talked about inclusionary zoning at least 3 study sessions. We've talked about it a couple times at council meetings. I'd really like to have some kind of preliminary consensus tonight so that we can move forward, even if after that decision and after some projects are in the works, we need to come back and reassess. So,
Can I ask a quick
Please.
clarifying question? So in our staff report in table 5, which I believe is like the proposed recommendation, ours says 4%, 6%, 10%, but the one that you showed has different numbers, 3%, something.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that back
So
up.
I just want to kind of clarify which is the official recommendation, and are we looking at 3 or 4?
Yeah, so the table 5 was based on my misunderstanding based on the Holland and Knight
Okay.
review of density bonus that I did. So if you wanted to retain the gap between density bonus and inclusionary zoning, I would recommend you stick with the Planning Commission's recommendation of 3%, 6%. And then 10% is really flexible. You can make that 10%, 15%, whatever you want, because the density bonus doesn't address median income in rental housing at all, and density bonus doesn't trigger for median income until you get up into the 40s for sale housing. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and I know that the council was really interested in this median income program, so that's why we tried to beef that up.
Great. Then going off that, I mean, if we're getting ideas out there, we're moving. I do understand where these percentages come from the Planning Commission and how that works with the density bonus, our community benefits, how those all meld together. These percentages make a lot of sense to me. I would propose then that if we are going to keep this table in the percentages the way they are, I really would like to then see it kick in at a lower amount of units, somewhere closer to like the 15 to 20 range instead of 30.
that sounds reasonable to me. Let me ask you a question. Never mind. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah, I also concur that it would trigger much lower than 30 units. I think that maybe 15 even would be a good number. And again, I am looking for higher numbers in inclusionary percentage.
Well, one of the things is that we have to compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So, Danco does very low income. Pacific Builder builds for other people. And so you have to look at your contractors and what they actually do. And so I think it'll be interesting to see as time goes on, when we have some developments occurring in this whole thing, where people actually go, because we know everything costs more, all our materials cost more. So to make a project even pencil out is a really difficult thing to do. And I think it'll be interesting to see, because, you know, you were showing some of the rents, and those rents are here today for two people living in one bedroom. It's already $1,200. And so it's not, you know,
For one.
well, it could be more, I don't know. I'm just saying, I know that that's true in some cases. It depends on the age of your property, and if you have property you've had for a very long time, you can have lower rents. If you have brand-new property you're putting together and you're building, you're going to have higher costs, and so your rents are going to be different. So I don't, you know, it'll be interesting to see how much can happen. We have a couple of developers in our community, and that's what they do, is they provide low-income housing and medium-income housing, etc. But the rest of them are just building for people.
But it shouldn't have to be the burden of Danco. I mean, it's, or the cash cow of Danco. I don't know which one.
I'm just wondering if developers are necessarily going to even want to use a density bonus if it's not realistic to build above a certain amount of stories. I mean,
The benefit of density bonus for developers is that they actually get the same number of market rate units. And then they get concessions and incentives that reduce the cost of their development. And so if a developer comes in and we tell them, hey, look, you're subject to inclusionary zoning, and there's no gap between inclusionary zoning and density bonus, they're going to tell us, well, thank you very much. I'll do density bonus while I'm at it. And then that standard that you had for me, you know, floor area ratio, I'm not going to do floor area ratio. I'm going to go way above that. The setbacks you wanted me to have, I'm not going to be able to do those setbacks. They're too expensive for me, so I'm not going to do them. I'm going to reduce my setbacks. And we have to approve them. We can't say no.
right, but I guess, so that's the conundrum we're in. Do we want housing? I mean, we need to build housing, so, I mean,
I feel like it's all very speculative on both sides of that argument, that, you know, they're just going to take the density bonus and not care, or they don't, and they you know, fall into this program and want to build on a smaller footprint. And that's the, you know, plans that they have. They don't want to totally 180 and change the whole development just to get the, you know, density bonus. So I think it's pretty speculative on both sides of that.
And to perhaps avoid speculation is that we would bring in the experts. I know that we're really wanting to move this along and get it done, but we want to do it right. We want people to build, and we want realistic numbers.
I think we could probably do that concurrently. I mean, we can make a decision tonight and still talk to developers. I know I've talked to developers, I'm sure Alex has. So,
I think the community would like to hear from them as well, and I do concur. We can do it at the same time. Nothing is set in stone. After we hear from the experts and we want to change that, we can.
Well, and I think in a sense, hearing from the experts is putting forth a plan that has, you know, higher thresholds that we want to see, and actually seeing if it gets built. That's the experts saying, no, we're not going to build here, or, okay, this works for us. We'll go ahead and do it. And I think that really speaks kind of to the point that, you know, Scott was saying during his report earlier, that we just need to kind of start to see how this is going to play out, how things are going to get built, if they're going to get built, what it's going to look like, and start to then adjust from there and tool it around from there.
Alex.
And so we've had, in some cases, we've had an individual that wanted to build more housing, but they came back and they decided not to, because when they looked at their construction costs, they couldn't do it. And so they just go, okay, I'm not going to do anything in this commercial unit I'm building. I'll just put a little apartment in there for myself, and I'm not going to develop. So I think we have to wait. I think the Planning Commission, their idea of let's see what this gap is, how can we pull it off, and what'll happen. We haven't really adopted the general plan. The gateway hasn't been adopted. I think those things have to happen, then we can see who's going to come forward and what's going to be moving. But we don't even, you know, there are people out there waiting, developers or people that own property, they're waiting for the gateway to be developed, you know, plan approved. They're waiting for the general plan to be approved. Then we can see what's going to happen. Right now,
I hope you're right. I don't see any developers beating down our doors, and as it is right now, without the Gateway Area Plan, you can build 4 stories right now. Do we have anybody who is waiting? Do we have any developers who are like, yeah, we want to do this? When was this particular project that you're speaking of, this
Probably
developer?
in a year ago. They decided on cost that they couldn't do it. But there is one developer, and the person has a property in, 2 properties in the Gateway. One is in the Coastal Commission area. That's another whole hurdle to go through. And the other one isn't. But he said he can't do anything until he finds out what is happening. Is the Gateway being adopted? Is the general plan being adopted? So I think we need to move forward on those items.
All right. Does anybody have a motion they want to make, or do we want to talk about it some more?
Well, I would support.
Well, I would move of what I said previously of maintaining this current percentage table, but lowering the threshold, because, I don't know, we're being arbitrary. You said 30 was arbitrary, so to 15.
I concur.
All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
And I may not exactly understand what that means.
Okay.
Maintaining this table right up here as
I get
recommended
that.
by the Planning Commission, but instead of having it kick in at 30 units, I am proposing we have it kick in at 15 units.
All right. So we have a motion for that and a second. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye on me.
I guess I'm going to go aye. I still don't quite get it.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
we have a decision on inclusionary zoning, for better or for worse. I'm going to bang my gavel for that one. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, the Community Development Team. Thank you, Planning Commission. I feel really good that that's one hurdle that we have managed to put to rest. So good work.
Could I ask one clarifying question? So we did talk about being able to concurrently talk to the experts. How do we get that to come to fruition or get the ball rolling on that?
Well,
I'm happy to reach out. I do want to share, when this conversation came up, a year plus ago, I just have talked to several developers. They were all very interested in talking to any of you individually. I think we've talked about that. Many of them were very hesitant to come to a public meeting on general questions. So, I'm happy to reach out again, but I would really encourage each of you just to reach out. I'm happy to give you some of those numbers or set some of that, meeting time up to have a little bit more candid conversations, and then maybe through that, they would feel comfortable talking about a specific proposal.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware of those people, and I would love to get that information and the numbers.
All right, thank you. I think we're ready to move on.
Oh, I just want to say, I truly believe you will get better information and people will understand what's going on after the general plan and the gateway is adopted.
All right. All right. That being said, we are having no new business. Does anybody need to take a break? All right, let's keep going. Let's head to oral and written communication. The city appreciates public input. This time is provided for people to address the council or submit written communications on matters that are not on the agenda. Please know that pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take actions on items that are not listed on the posted agenda. At the end of all oral and written communications, the council may respond to statements. Supported requests that require council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council are limited to 3 minutes. And yeah, so let's line up.
We can have the same people again.
That's all right.
Hi, thank you for giving me a chance to speak. This is the only second time I've come here. I see that you have a lot on your table. I really appreciate the presentation about the Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So I know you care, but it's difficult for me to understand why we're sweeping the topic under the rug about caring for the crisis in the Middle East. And just to give you some context, the City Council of Arcata in 2005 did take a stand on an international issue of great controversy, and it had a resolution in 2005 condemning the U.S. involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan. Some of the wording in the resolution actually said that the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq was founded on lies. It specifically addressed the lies of WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, and it addressed the lie of connecting 9/11 to those invasions. And the wording included that the council believed that by speaking out, we can hope to change the world. So there's a very strong precedent for international action and for the council to take a stand, or at least to let us address the issue on the agenda. I don't see how it's going to help the world to sweep it under the rug and ignore it. Maybe a resolution like that won't pass, but to not consider it seems irresponsible to me. So I encourage you to look up that history. 2005 Arcata, you can Google it, resolution on Iraq, and you can see what the city council did then. And I encourage you to have courage and not be afraid to get involved in a little controversy. Oh, I know you're involved in controversy all the time, so I know you can do it. So I hope we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, commenter.
Can I briefly respond? Just a reminder, we did at our November 15th meeting have an agendized resolution that was not passed by the council. And if that is on, that whole meeting is on YouTube, everybody's comments, our council member comments are all part of the record.
And there were about 3.5 hours of public comment that we heard for that.
Hi, my name's Andy Rostad. My pronouns are they, them. I live and work here in town, and I'm interested, well, first of all, I want to thank you for the land acknowledgement that you started the meeting with this evening. And I'm interested, and others in the community are interested in officially changing the name of our good town back to Gudimi, the Select word that we used for this area, meaning over in the woods. And so what I'm kind of curious about tonight is, I know the name of our town has been changed in the past from Uniontown to Arcata. That was like in March of 1860 it was changed. What is the process for changing the name of the town? Are we to do that? Is that something that the city council would have the power to do? Is that something that would legally need to be put to a vote to the registered voters of the municipality, or maybe the power lies within the city council, but the city council, in order to do so, would want it to be put to a vote. I guess I'm just here. It's the first year of the new year, first month of the new year. And I see it as a time to kind of like set visions, set intentions, and I'm just kind of here to introduce the idea if it hasn't been introduced already. I did find it promising that we are already in our land acknowledgement acknowledging that this place had a name before some people showed up and set up shop and created all this stuff that we see for us. So that's what I'm here for. That's a question maybe for the city attorney. I'm not sure if this is the right avenue to go about these questions, but I'm here to ask them, and I don't expect answers tonight, but I just wanted to put it out there and get the discussion started. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, commenter.
Good evening. My name is Joanne McGarry, and I really appreciate the previous speaker and what is being proposed about a name change for the place we live. I think name backs, if we can't do land backs right away, is something really strongly we should consider. And as we move forward in trying to define who we are as community in our town, these are the kinds of important, vital, serious matters that we need to be looking at locally and then, of course, globally. An anniversary came for me So it's a little personal right now. 12 years ago on Martin Luther King Day, I arrived in Humboldt County to set up residence. And it's been a very interesting journey for me. I carry this cup with me, and people who are involved in Oyster Fest may remember this or appreciate this for the future, but there used to be a time where Fire Arts made mugs, and their students made mugs, and they sold lemonade at the Oyster Fest. And you bought a mug and you got lemonade and you could wander around. And my first Oyster Fest was in 2012, and I bought a mug and I was drinking lemonade, and I was jaw-dropping at how awful Oyster Fest looked and felt to me. So I went inside the Garden Gate, which was on the corner there and open, and I went to kind of get out of the madness and the wastedness of that Oyster Fest of 2012 with my little mug here. And a man out of his mind barged in and practically tackled me in an assault, whether he was deliberately trying to do it or not. And since then, in this town of Arcata, amongst the woods, we have had instances that I have personally had to endure. A stabbing right outside the doors of City Hall across the street of the man who works across the street by a transient man, that I was so afraid, and the door was locked and I thought I was next. So that was traumatic. In addition, I also had to witness knowing Nancy the day before alive, before she was found dead the next morning, and nothing was said about it. So my 12 years here have made me really disappointed in what I thought Arcata was in the 45 years I've come up here to visit. And I really do think that things like resolutions about children that we were talking about for so many minutes at the beginning of this meeting, mentoring children, what are they going to say about us and what we did or did not do about the children in Gaza? We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones to make a brighter day.
Thank you
So
for
let's
your
start
comment.
living.
Hi, thank you, folks. I'm glad to be here once again. And I just want to request that you guys consider putting on the agenda for next meeting the ceasefire resolution to call for a ceasefire in Palestine. This is a very serious issue. This is a historic, the magnitude it can't be stressed enough just how massive an issue this is right now. We're seeing a genocide on TV. It's like the mainstream media, they might not show us, right? The people of this council voting all, having this ceasefire pass, it's a very significant action because it joins with other cities across the country showing that there is not support for what our government is doing, and that is the truth. The most people, overwhelming majority of the people, do not agree with what our government is doing. And same with this city, even more so probably. We don't want this. You know, you look at all the comments on this issue. Yeah, there's some people who want to continue the genocide and think we should just keep, eradicating the Palestinians until they're all gone. But that is an extreme minority of people, and it's a very hostile and unacceptable, like hate-filled message. And so showing that there is no support for this war sends a powerful message to the president and to Congress. These resolutions are not insignificant. Where is this all going? Where is this conflict going to end? Where are we going to be in 6 months when we have, elections in this, here and nationally? Where are we going to be at that time with witnessing this genocide in Gaza, in Palestine? Probably it's going to keep going unless people rise up and say no. There's concerns. I've been hearing people say, oh, well, are we going to be sending U.S. troops now? it seems like a long time ago that Vietnam, there was a draft and people were children were put on, boats and shipped to the other side of the world. That could happen again. But why should we only worry about our own sons and daughters? That's a real privilege to be able to sit and do nothing.
Thank you for your comment.
This last week, I sent the council and our city manager email and basically an article in the New York Times addressing an issue. I've seen some people act like they didn't get it. We'll have to resend it, but it's the same issue that for the last 2 years regarding traffic enforcement, which is also speeding, which is also vehicles that are taking the liberty of adjusting their exhaust to sound like gunshots. And this is something I've been talking about at least 20 times. I've written a letter. In the beginning, I went to the police department over 2 years ago, and they confirmed that this was all happening, and they needed the staffing. So I also got an email from one of you at that point saying, we're on your side, but in the future, we're going to rebuild our police department, and then we're going to start enforcing these issues that you're addressing. And I've been very, very patient. And some time ago, I brought this up again, and after another person had been seriously injured in the crosswalk, and another one had been killed, and I said, I'm really tired of this. I'm just going to go to the Attorney General of California, because, you raised your right hand to uphold the laws, and Bridget here did this in the beginning when you started out. And unfortunately, what's happened is, after I said that, which was actually a pretty good thing, that one of you reached out to me and said, give us some more time. We're going to be rebuilding our police department. It's going to be starting soon. And so I've waited for that, and that has happened. You've hired a new chief, and he confirmed that we have a lot more officers on staff now. So what I'm seeing is nothing has changed from that standpoint. You're not interested, and for whatever reason, in enforcing speed. You're okay with taking like millions of dollars from the state of California and say you're addressing certain issues. So I guess I've done everything possible I can to, get, and I don't know why I have had to work so hard about this. It seems like such a simple thing, but I guess I'm going to have to go to the Attorney General's office and the governor's office and just let them know that you're not interested in enforcing the laws of the city. And basically, we're having quite a high percentage of people, and it's already been given out a report in Humboldt, that are being injured and death. I thought this article, which I guess you haven't got, would do a much better job, and the title is, Why Are So Many People Dying in America? And I guess I'll try sending that again, but that's what I have to do.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks for this opportunity to talk about the ceasefire resolution that our city of Arcata has yet to pass. The first resolution that was brought in here was a very long resolution. A lot of those things I think need to be said, and I appreciate the people that said them. But I think the message I took away from that meeting was that, in fact, Councilwoman Salazar pointed out that it was a little confusing, and there was some talk about how long it was, and so we, this particular group, Redwood Peace and Justice Center Coalition, scaled the resolution way down. It's less than a full page. We brought it here last week. I tallied up the people that spoke in support for this resolution. I wrote a letter to you all about this. There were 85 people that spoke at 3 different meetings. Out of those 85 people, 70 people wanted the resolution. 5 of those 70 people wanted to participate in the crafting of that resolution, and 15 people opposed. So an overwhelming majority of your constituents would like to see this resolution passed. I feel like Our federal government is doing this on behalf of Israel, AIPAC and the Israel lobby. There are over 400 of our representatives in Washington who have hijacked our vote. They've hijacked our country, and they're doing Israel's bidding. It goes against our security in this country. We are headed towards boots on the ground. We have boots in the boats that are sitting out in the Mediterranean right now and near the Red Sea. We are seeing this regional war escalate every day. There's been flyovers in Yemen now and bombing there. There's been bombing in Lebanon. This is not doing anything for our national security as Americans. I'd like my country back. I feel like my country has been hijacked. And when I come to these meetings and you say you don't want to pass this, even though asking for a ceasefire, you don't want to pass it, that flies in the face of your mission statement, of your goals, of everything you've stated about what you're about in the city of Arcata. And I got to ask myself, why? Why? Do you have an allegiance to another country that surpasses your responsibilities here as representatives for your constituents? Is that what this is about? Are you afraid? Well, who are you afraid of? Be brave. Have courage. Israel is not the horse we want to be backing. Israel is running over people with tanks. They're shooting people in the West Bank. Hamas is not in the West Bank.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay. Very well. So, last time, Jeffrey Harris, was the only one who in person spoke up in defense of Israel, was making the conclusion that Israel is locked in an existential struggle with Hamas, and a lasting ceasefire must not be put into place until Hamas has been eliminated. In order to better relate to the current conflict, one needs to approach it with a perspective informed by an understanding of the relevant historical context. Over the last 4,000 years, various settlers occupied this territory between the Mediterranean Sea and the River Jordan, which was once known as the land of Canaan. Now, early in the second millennia BC, the Canaanites had been establishing a society largely based upon pastoral nomadism in this mostly arid land. They were the people of El Yahweh, his consort Asherah, and his nephew Baal, symbolized by the golden calf. The 12 tribes of Israel then united to form the Kingdom of Israel, which divided into the kingdoms of Israel and Judea. These kingdoms were conquered by the Babylonian Empire, then by the Persian Empire, and next by the emperor of Alexander III the Great of Macedonia. This empire fragmented to at least 4 successor states, one of which, the Seleucid Empire, came to control much of the eastern Mediterranean coastal lands, including Canaan. The Ammonian dynasty ruled next. The Roman Empire conquered this territory. The eastern half of the Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire. Note the Arabs under Muhammad's successor made incursions to Canaan about 636 AD. They then established the Fatimid Caliphate in 909 AD. European crusaders invaded and set up the Christian kingdom of Jerusalem. In 1171, Saladin, a Kurdish military leader from Iraq, abolished the Fatimid Caliphate of Egypt and established the Ayyubid dynasty, a Sunni Muslim dynasty also known as the Ayyubid Sultanate. This dynasty ruled in the late 12th and early 13th centuries, also over Egypt and what became Upper Iraq, most of Syria, and Yemen. The Islamic Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt was next established by revolting Turkish slave soldiers. Then the Ottoman Turkish Empire conquered and ruled. After World War I, the British Mandate of Palestine took over jurisdiction. In 1948, the State of Israel came into being. I don't see here in any of these 18 social and political organizations any mention whatsoever of the Palestinians. I see Israelis, Romans, Christians, yes, some Muslims, both Arabs and Turks, but no Palestinians specifically. The term Palestine itself was a Greek word for the Israeli territory and was applied to it by the Romans. Very much later, various Arabs occupied and settled this land. In 1964, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, a group led by Yasser Arafat and widely recognized as being a terrorist organization, was formed and began to call the Arab Muslims in this area Palestinians. The PLO renamed this group to purport that they were coherent people and had a right to be liberated through the elimination of Israel. Furthermore, it has been noticed that the Palestinians have largely Jordanian and Egyptian last names, so as many of them came from these countries. Haptam in the cup, haptam in the board, cronium deus volt, ab igni et gladio et ion de evilis.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else want to make an in-person comment? I don't think that's anybody else in here. All right, let's go online.
All right, first speaker is Fred. Go ahead, Fred.
Yes, good evening. This is Fred Wise. Thank you for the work on the inclusionary zoning. I think we're not over on this. I'll remind the council that our housing element states clearly that 20% of the gateway housing uses the word will, be deed restricted to residents with income below 80%. So at one point, the council and the commission believe that it would be possible to have 20% at 80% income level, not 6%, but 20%. In terms of the Planning Commission report to the City Council, most of my comments are best addressed in writing, so I'll write to you about that. I'll say a few things. In the section on community needs, the report says the Commission has been very responsive to the community. I thoroughly and completely disagree with that statement. In the next sentence, it says that there are meetings to ensure interested community members have access to the general plan decision-making process. The word there is access. I propose that having access is not the same at all as being responsive. Yes, we have had access. Further in the paragraph, it says that there have been improvements to transparency. Again, I disagree. And then in the last line in that paragraph, yet another example was the Commission's decision to end special meetings to provide more opportunities to the public to provide comment. Well, this is a curious statement. It implies guilt. It says that there will be more opportunity. That implies that there had been less opportunity. The special study sessions were a violation of the Brown Act. They decreased the public input by returning it to a normal meeting. Now we have more, which is what was legally required in the first place. There's also, in looking at the report, there can be an alternative report of what didn't happen with the Planning Commission in 2023. One of the more notable items was that the Planning Commission had requested a meeting specifically with the, they had specific ideas of what would happen. A meeting with the Playhouse people and that was in the Creamery people. That was set up, but Mr. Loya set it up not what the Planning Commission had asked for. And as you know, as I've said, that almost about 40 or 45% of the people walked out of that meeting when they were told what the agenda was, because it wasn't what the Planning Commission had asked for. Engagement is still not reported. The engagement report that dates from a year and a half ago is not complete, doesn't have the executive report.
Thank you, Fred, for your comments.
Okay, thanks very much.
We have no more online public comment.
Okay, that's it.
All right. All right. Thank you for your comments. We will now receive an update from City Engineer David Case. Thank you on the 8th and 9th Street Improvement Project. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to hearing about this.
Hello. Well, I'm not your city engineer. I'm the assistant city engineer.
Assistant city engineer. Details.
So, yeah. So, I want to call it a presentation. It's really only 2 slides with some photos on there. But I was just going to take a few minutes before talking about an update of where we're at and just kind of talk a little bit about the background just as a reminder for what happened and how this project started. So to be completely honest, it started well before I began working here, and I'm not 100% sure of when that initial concept was developed. I know it was kind of refined back in 2020 as part of the Plaza Improvement Task Force. They had some recommendations, and in an attempt to continue the one-way streets from the plaza westerly, and then also to improve access within those segments for all user types. So that's kind of in concept how it started. In that same year, back in 2020, we applied for an IIG grant, which is the Infill Infrastructure Grant. And later we received $850,000 for some planning, design, and construction funds. And so later in, I think it was 2022, early 2022, we hired a consultant to help to do with some of the planning and the public outreach We did a number of public outreach type events. We did a pop-up event. We did an online survey. And we used that to help kind of refine a couple different alternatives we had for each of these plans. And then later, the following year, early in 2023, we brought it to TSC. We narrowed it down to basically two different alternatives for 8th Street and the same thing, two different alternatives for 9th Street. And TSC made a recommendation for one of those alternatives, and then later we brought it to council and they agreed and made the same recommendation for those alternatives. So what you see here on the screen is the alternative that was chosen. And then after this is just a concept plan with just kind of some colors to kind of show in concept what we were wanting to do. We did some sidewalk improvements, some sidewalk widening. We raised some of the intersections, and then we did what they call.
Could we put this on for the online? They're not seeing what you have up here.
Sure. Let's see. And actually, I don't even have it full screen. But yeah, they have some what they call opportunity zones, which is the kind of magenta color, the pinkish color. That are set aside for art or events in the future. But later that year, well, wasn't soon after, actually, council approved the alternatives. Our consultant moved forward with the final design, and we finished that and put it out to bid and awarded the project in October of this last year. Actually, excuse me, September of this year. And then our contractor started working in October and has been working since then. And so I'm kind of here now to provide an update as to where we're at with construction and what is going to happen here in the future. So thus far, since October, we've pretty much got all of the flat work of the hardscape improvements in. We've done some of the bulb outs. We've done the concrete work. We've made some of the changes to the driveways to the co-op. We narrowed it down from a total of 6 driveways down to 2 and made some changes within the inner circulation of the co-op parking lot as well. And so at this point, we're primarily waiting on the enhanced, or the RRFB, the enhanced flashing beacons on 8th Street. So the contractor has ordered those, but I wouldn't say they're on back order, but it's one of those long lead items right now. So I don't have an anticipated date for installation yet, but they are on order and they are planned to be installed as soon as we receive them in. The next step really would be moving forward, would be what was part of the original plan was to do a slurry seal, which is basically like a very thin lift of asphalt. It's probably not the best description, but to just really cover up any cracks, any of the joints where we did some new pavement, and also to hide any of the old pavement markings so we can have some clean, fresh markings go down. But this time of year and the weather we've had lately, it's just not cooperating. So it doesn't look like we're going to have a decent weather window to do that anytime soon. But we've already made all of the hard improvements and we'd like to move forward. So at this point, we've decided that it's best to go ahead and do some temporary paint. And so we'll kind of grind down some of the old pavement markings and paint, and we'll put the temporary paint in. And then once the weather cooperates, hopefully in a couple months, we'll do the slurry seal and the final thermoplastic pavement markings. So I think that is, in a nutshell, kind of our plans moving forward. Are there any questions?
So we're going to wait for 8th and 9th to be one way until the weather permits? No.
No, sorry. I skipped that. Oh, I maybe didn't clarify. So we want to open it up to the one-way configuration soon because all the hardscape and everything's in and it's ready to go. But we can't do the slurry seal, so we're going to do the temporary paint. So that still also is weather dependent. We're hoping for anywhere between the next 2 to 4 weeks to start that. And so we're gonna have all of the signage up, and we're gonna have it's just gonna be bagged in the meantime, just so you know it's still left open for two-way, and we're ready to pull the trigger and finish the striping and reopen the street. We'll unbag the signs. We'll have some additional temporary signage on the ground just to provide some extra warning and advanced notifications. And in the meantime, we'll have some changeable message boards out there providing updates to when this is going to happen as soon as we know and we have a weather window. So they'll actually be out there starting as early as this Friday, and just basically alerting the public and the users in the area that it's coming soon to be aware of it. And then as we get closer, we'll bring them in a little closer directly on 8th and 9th Street and have a little bit more detailed information of when it's actually going to happen. So again, still a little bit weather dependent because of the paint as opposed to the thermo. It does take longer to dry, so we do need a good 2 to 3 days of good sunny weather and no rain.
Well, I was just going to say they have a signboard out there saying it's coming right now. So people
That's
are
right.
being alerted that there will be a change to the traffic.
Anybody else have any questions? No? Thank you for the update. We're really looking forward to this, and I hope everybody reads the signs. Please drive safely. Please drive safely.
I wanted to say, I thought the co-op reconfiguration and driveways actually works quite well. I'm not too sure that everyone else agrees with that or so forth, but I felt like it did.
I agree with it because I don't almost get hit every time I walk by 3 different driveways as I'm trying to walk to these meetings. But I will say there definitely needs to be some repainting of the parking stalls because I saw a Tesla just sitting in the middle of the turnaround the other day. And I was like, oh gosh. I went back in and I was like, you guys need to find the owner of this car. But so I think people are learning and figuring it out, but it'll be going smoothly soon enough.
All right. Thank you so much, David. We appreciate that. Thank you, Netra. And all right. So any other staff reports? All right. Let's move on to council reports. I think we'll start with Kimberly this time.
Thanks. All right, since our last city council meeting, I attended the monthly chamber mixer at the basement lounge at the Jacoby Storehouse with nightly music, great food and drinks, had a great time, there was a great turnout. I also got to attend the Martin Luther King celebration at the community center this past Monday. In addition to speakers, there was food, music, spoken word, and various organizations tabling. Earlier today, I got to attend the city's homeless housing working group. We received a update on the safe parking, extreme weather shelter, home key, and finally the point in time count. Arcata House Partnership, their safe parking is full and continues to be full. There will be a warming center daily from 1 to 4, which will be at the transit center. And also there are free bus rides with the Humboldt Transit Service to shelters and warming centers when an emergency weather has been announced. And then also Arcata House Partnership has been able to fund a quick response trailer, which is going to be carrying tarps and tents and towels and things to help people who have been, for instance, got rained out during some pretty massive flooding in various encampments and things. So, and then finally, the Grove has almost finished their ADA units, which will be opening up housing, I think they said for 6 units. Also want to remind people that there is a point in time census coming for the unhoused community. They really need more volunteers. That day will be the 23rd. It's a national day. And the point in time count is a collaborative effort led by the Humboldt Housing and Homeless Coalition. It's a census. It's very important because it's what brings resources to this county to address homelessness and housing. So again, volunteers are needed during the morning hours in particular on the 23rd to help with the count. Teams will be going out to various locations across the county. So if you're wanting to help out with that, you can contact Humboldt Point in Time. So that's Humboldt.pointintime, all one word, .info, or you can go to the HumboldtGovernment.org page, HHHC, and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Okay, well, my meetings all seem to be starting afterwards. The basement was great to see it open, and how the chamber mixer was fantastic there. And I thought the owners, they did a fantastic job for the chamber and the community because it was a full house. So I have a meeting tomorrow, and then I have one next week. You know, HTA decided to take this month off, and so they'll be coming soon. So I don't really, I'm busy. I have a lot of things I've been doing and meeting with people, and so that's why I sort of talk about development. I'm thinking about it, and because I'm involved in whatever I find out. But I also wanted to mention that we're getting really close to having our offices down at the transit center, and it'll be the transit conference room, and it'll be available for city staff to use besides the council. And they're hoping to be able to set it up that you can go in and book it, that there'll be some kind of a mechanical, not mechanical, but it'll be on your phone where you can book the time you need to be there, and so people can see how it's booked and how they want to set it up. So that's coming, that's in the future, not too far away, in my opinion.
All right, thanks. I'm really looking forward. On Friday, I have my first meeting. I'm on the policy committee with Cal Cities of the housing, economic development, and community policies. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what I can do on the state level about our housing. See, HWMA just got a $2.7 million calorie cycle grant, so that's really exciting. We had a speaker earlier speaking about renaming Arcata. I would love to start with the D Street Neighborhood Center that some people still can't get the name right. I would love to rename that to something. So I'd like to see that agendized in the future. And I would also, so if the point in time count, I am doing that. So it's like Councilmember White said, it's the 23rd. We'll be meeting at 6 a.m. at the Annex. So I've got my count app on my phone if anybody wants to join me. I'm really interested in what the counts are, and just want to remind everybody that there are a lot of committees out there that still need people to serve on them. So if you've got things you'd like to contribute to the city, I really encourage you to sign up to be on a committee. Thanks.
I'm kind of in the same boat. All my big meetings are next week. But exciting update. Redwood Coast Energy Authority did get a $3 million grant, which is going to help install solar and battery storage systems for 16 different Humboldt County fire stations to run during disasters, during fire season, during storm outages, et cetera. And so that's really exciting, and we're going to be working with the Schatz Energy Research Center on that to get those out there. And then also just the reminder that it is coming up to time for those e-bike vouchers that are coming out, both through the state, which you initially apply for, and then you can kind of double that money with the vouchers that our CEA provides as well. So that's all I got to update on.
All right, thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.